so the recording has started. And then lastly, as I say in all of our webinars, feel free to sit back, relax. There's no need to have your camera on unless you want to. But aside from that, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Katie Heintz, who will take it from here. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Stephen. I'm Katie Heintz. I am Associate Provost for Undergraduate Studies here at Santa Clara University, and I'm also a teaching professor in the Department of Communication. I'm going to ask CJ to unmute and introduce himself while I get the slides set up.
Sure. Thanks, Katie. Hi, everybody. I'm CJ Gabbe. I'm the director of the undergraduate core curriculum, and I'm also an associate professor of environmental studies and sciences. So, yeah, welcome. And uh, as Stephen said, hope you can sit back and we can share some information about our curriculum and answer your questions.
Okay, whoops. All right, let's see if I can do this. There we go. Okay, can everybody see it? CJ, is it good? Okay, thank you. Okay, so CJ and I today are going to talk with you about the undergraduate experience, the undergraduate core curriculum, and the Jesuit approach to education. So as you know, you will be having a major, maybe more than one. You'll be potentially having a minor and completing a core curriculum all while you're here with us at Santa Clara. So we're going to walk you through that. And a reminder, we do have, or just to let you know, we do have the questions that some of you submitted previously, and we will address those during our presentation and at the end. All right, so first thing, welcome and congratulations. I know how stressful the college application process can be, and making a decision between choices of places where you got in. So congratulations. We are so excited that you're joining us in our community of what we call people with and for others. And we'll talk to you a little more about what that looks like. All right, so the Santa Clara vision says that SCU will educate citizens and leaders of competence, conscience, compassion, and community, and cultivate knowledge and purpose to build a more humane, just, and sustainable world. You're going to hear a lot about the four C's while you're here at Santa Clara. You'll hear a lot about it during the orientation process, and you also will hear about it during your experience here. Competence, conscience, compassion, and community are signature elements of your Santa Clara experience. So how do we enact that vision, right? So Santa Clara has a mission, and this is our mission: to create an academic community that educates the whole person within the Jesuit Catholic tradition, making student learning our central focus, continuously improving our curriculum and co-curriculum, strengthening our scholarship and creative work, and serving the communities of which we are a part in Silicon Valley and around the world. So I'm going to parse that out for you and talk to you a bit about how we enact this at Santa Clara. So first, we promise to educate the whole person within the Jesuit Catholic tradition. So if you have any background in Jesuit education, you'll know that Cura Personalis is a signature Jesuit theme. And we also hear many, many universities now talking about educating the whole person. When St. Ignatius used that term, he didn't mean just educate the whole person, but he also meant care for each person in their uniqueness, in body, mind, and spirit. And so we approach students, each one of you, as a unique individual who's bringing in unique talents, unique ideas, unique thoughts. And so I want you to think about, how will you design your path to graduation in a way that is unique to you, to your talents, your interests, and your goals? When you walk across that stage at the end of 4 years, you will have earned a degree that is it's not completely, but is not a cookie cutter degree. It'll be yours, very different from anybody else's. Okay, making student learning our central focus. So all of the faculty at Santa Clara are hired as teaching scholars. That's the model. We all put teaching first. Most faculty also do research or do creative work, do lots of service, but it's the teaching scholar model, so we put the students first. And we use a teaching approach that's called the Ignatian pedagogy. And this is an example here. This is the model here. So if we start at the top, what the approach does is it recognizes the value of the experiences and the backgrounds that students bring to the classroom. So the context and the experience that you bring as you come into the classroom and see how reflect on how those experiences and contexts can help us make decisions about actions that we could take in the real world. Then we evaluate the effectiveness of the decisions and then see how we need to make some changes. So in the new context. And so you can see that every class you will have will be different because of the people in it, right? And the instructor in it and the context in which you are addressing the situation. And this process, it works in any discipline. Continuously improving our curriculum and co-curriculum, strengthening our scholarship and creative work. So we work very hard to make sure that the curriculum is innovative, the curriculum is forward-thinking. And one of the challenges we have as a faculty is to think about how do we best prepare students for a world that is changing so quickly? So what are the skills and knowledge that students need to adapt to the future of work and the future of life? So one of the ways we do this is through our undergraduate majors, the curriculum, the innovation that we use in creating majors. So this here is a list of the majors that are offered by the College of Arts and Sciences, the Levy School of Business, and the School of Engineering. It is also possible for students to create a customized major called individual studies. Those are offered in the College of Arts and Sciences and the Levy School of Business. We don't offer customizable minors. But every one of these departments, almost, I will say, psychology does not offer a minor, but almost every department across the whole college and both schools offers at least one minor as well. And so students typically have a major and a minor. They might have more than one major, might have a major and more than one minor. There's a lot of ways to customize your education to fit your interests. We also have a set of, I mentioned we have a lot of disciplinary minors, but we know that the complex world that we live in requires multiple perspectives for attacking a problem. And so we have created a whole set of interdisciplinary minors. And some of these minors are housed entirely in one school or one college, but most of these go across schools or college. So just for an example, the arts management minor is a collaboration between the Department of Art and Art History in the College of Arts and Sciences and the management and marketing departments in the Levy School of Business. There's also the Responsible Artificial Intelligence minor, which is a collaboration between the Computer Science and Engineering department in the School of Engineering and the Philosophy department in the College of Arts and Sciences. And then the construction management minor actually spans all three of the schools. You can take courses in College of Arts and Sciences, Levy School of Business, and the School of Engineering. So there's ways of getting an education that's very well-rounded across all the different schools through these interdisciplinary minors. Okay, finally, the last part of our mission says we're going to serve the communities of which we are a part in Silicon Valley and around the world. And students do this in a variety of different ways. So this student, for example, is participating in one of the opportunities involved in our experiential learning for social justice core requirement. She's tutoring a student at a local school, and she does that 2 hours a week during a single quarter. These students are on an immersion trip, were on an immersion trip in Appalachia, and they are planting saplings because they're trying to reforest and repair ground that has been destroyed by all of the mining in the area. And these students are part of the Engineers Beyond Borders program, and they were there to help build a solar-powered water pump with a community in Rwanda. So there's the Silicon Valley and the world. Okay, then we want to think more broadly beyond your major, right? Regardless of major, all of our undergraduates benefit from an education that encompasses the skills, abilities, and learning dispositions required for success in 21st century society and workplaces, distinguishing SCU as the Jesuit University in Silicon Valley. So this, beyond the requirements for your major, these are the learning goals that Santa Clara University has set for all of our undergraduates. So not only will you become expert in your discipline or disciplines, but you will develop these skills and habits that carry on beyond graduation. Some of these are not specifically Ignatian or Jesuit, but some of them really lean into that, like social justice, ethics, and engagement with communities. All right, so I'm going to pivot a little bit and talk about the undergraduate core curriculum and then turn it over to CJ for more specifics. So, the undergraduate core curriculum is designed to provide learning opportunities to achieve those learning goals that were on the previous slide. And so, the curriculum has three broad goals that encompass the others: knowledge, habits of mind and heart, and engagement with the world. So, the first one, knowledge. Knowledge was this is the rationale for this particular core area. Informed engagement in society requires that students comprehend what has shaped the world they will inherit, the evolving ways of understanding it, and how they might transform it for the better. To that end, the core deepens your knowledge of the most profound ideas and ways of knowing that emerge from the arts, humanities, natural, and social sciences. So the core encompasses a whole breadth of different requirements in order for you to get that first C, competence, right? The knowledge. The second, habits of mind and heart. Contributions to a rapidly changing, complex, and interdependent world require students to develop ways of thinking, feeling, and acting that foster passionate, purposeful learning for the rest of their lives. By attending to the cognitive and affective dimensions of human experience, the core enables you to think more deeply, imagine more freely, and communicate more clearly. And these are the second C, conscience, right? Why and what should we be studying and how should we be acting? Finally, the third major learning goal, engagement with the world. Meaningful engagement includes opportunities to explore and refine self-knowledge in relation to others. The core enhances your understanding of the integrity of your own life and the dignity inherent in the lives of others, especially the impoverished, the suffering, and the marginalized. And this is the third C, compassion. All right, I am going to turn it over to CJ now, who's going to direct me on how to move the slides and give you more information.
Great. Thanks so much, Katie. So I'll get into some of the nuts and bolts of the undergraduate core curriculum, and then it'll probably spark some questions from you all as well. So we often think of our core curriculum as having three different pillars, these foundational courses, some exploratory courses, and then some integrating courses. And Katie, do you mind going to the next animation? And so first up, we have a set of foundational courses that include critical thinking and writing, cultures and ideas, math, second language, an introductory religion, theology, and culture course. I'll talk more about each of these. And then we get into some of the more exploratory courses that either expose students to different disciplines or different methodologies, ways of thinking. And then as they reach their typically junior and senior years, they'll take courses that integrate what they've learned, particularly with their major requirements too. So you may be seeing this list of different core requirements and thinking, wow, this seems overwhelming. It looks like there are 20 requirements up there. Is it even possible to do this within 4 years? And I wanted to just start kind of with the assurance that our system is set up so that we're on the quarter system. We have 12 quarters for students to work through these requirements. Some or many of these requirements are able to what we call double dip or count for both their students' major requirements and these core requirements. And when we think about these in the context of 4 years, students are typically taking, one to maybe three out of their courses in the quarter that are core, and the rest are taking for major, minor, and other requirements. So I just wanted to preface it with not being too, overwhelmed with this list of courses, and I'll talk a little bit about how these work. So something I think that is important, and I know we got a question prior to this webinar as well are some questions about how these requirements differ by school or college. And while generally we have the same core requirements across the university, the implementation differs a little bit by school or college. For instance, engineering students are able to do a little bit more double dipping, and they take one fewer pathway course. They take a specific advanced writing course that also meets their arts requirement and that is focused on engineering writing. Our business students take some specific courses to meet the core requirements, and those have synergies with the rest of the business curriculum. And then arts and sciences students generally have a bit more flexibility. And one of the links that I put in the chat at the very beginning was a list of all the core requirements and all the different courses from across the university that can fulfill those. So we can talk about this a little bit more. One other thing I wanted to mention here too is that while some of the core requirements need to be satisfied while students are at Santa Clara, others can be fulfilled with AP or transfer credit. So for instance, and I can drop a link in the chat in a little bit. For instance, students who come in with typically an AP test score of 4 or 5, in a few cases 3s, they may be able to fulfill their second language, math, natural science, or social science requirements. So I don't want to go into all the details, but we'll drop some links in the chat and we'll be able to answer some questions. All right, next slide, please. So the foundations courses are the courses, that was the left column of the earlier slide. Those are the courses that we really recommend students prioritize in their first and to some degree their second year. And so as you are probably looking through some of the options with your students, you're probably seeing that there are a couple different things that we're really strongly encouraging students take in their first year. And in some cases, students have been pre-enrolled in at least one of these. And so this includes our signature 2-course sequences that are focused on critical thinking and writing and cultures and ideas. Students may be wanting to take the required courses, whether they're in the College of Arts and Sciences, business or engineering for math. Like I mentioned before, the requirements will vary for second language by school, but there are kind of options for everybody, including modern and classical languages. And then students typically take their first of 3 religion, theology, and culture courses in their first or maybe their second year, since they need to take them chronologically. And this is a course that's going to introduce them to at least 2 different cultures or communities and give students a chance to critically reflect on that. Next slide, please. One of the things that I loved seeing in a recent SU newsletter profile, this is just an excerpt from an interview with one of our alums from 2014. And one of the questions that he was asked was which of the SU courses he's found most relevant to his professional development. And I love that he said his critical thinking and writing course was the one that did that. I think we often might think of, introductory writing courses as kind of just another, kind of box to check or something like that. But I love the way that he really, framed he came to SU thinking he was, a pretty good writer, but he thought that the CTW class really pushed him beyond what he was capable of achieving. And then also just thinking about it being not just a course that's focused on writing, but also it sets the stage for kind of the growth mindset to learning throughout the SU experience. And one thing I didn't mention in the previous slide is these 2 course sequences. Students are getting to know the instructor and their fellow students really well because they're with the same folks for the most part throughout. So it's a really, a great way to get introduced to college level learning and then also start building a community through that too. Next slide, please. So then that middle column of courses of requirements that really get students perhaps exposed to different disciplines or ideas than they may have had to otherwise. I think 2 examples that just show kind of the wide range of different courses that might be available is every student takes a course to meet the arts requirement, and that course needs to have the student create something. And we think of it creating something broadly. So it could be creating a film script, it could be creating a film, it could be choreographing a dance, it could be, doing some type of theater performance or creative writing. But really, we want students to create something as they also learn about the theory in the arts course too. In Cultures and Ideas 3, which builds on the previous Cultures and Ideas course, we want students to be exposed to different cultures from around the world. And, maybe that's looking at Chinese pop culture in a global context. Maybe that's thinking about the history of the Middle East. Maybe that's understanding contemporary indigenous cultures. There's really something for everyone to try to follow their interests, but then also maybe some of these may relate to their major requirements too. Next slide, please. And then the column on the right, when I was showing those requirements, has two main components. And so the advanced writing course is typically writing within a student's discipline. So it gives students a chance to really these are small courses, students get really detailed feedback on their writing, and it's focused on the kinds of writing that might be needed if you're a business student, if you're an engineer. We have several options in environmental studies and sciences that are really focused on maybe scientific writing, that sort of thing. So it's really discipline specific. And then as Katie was mentioning, all of these examples of connecting students with communities in Silicon Valley and beyond, we have this experiential learning for social justice requirement. And essentially, this is a way that a student can fulfill it in a few different ways through either a course or some kind of week-long immersion experience, do some type of community-based learning that combines at least 16 hours working with community-based organizations, and then reflecting and discussing and writing about it with students and their faculty members. So it's both kind of getting into the community and then also connecting it with some of the theory as well. Next slide, please. So some of the frequently asked questions that we often get include some things like, can a course fulfill both a core and a major requirement? Yes, absolutely. And the major and minor requirement sheets that we posted the link earlier in the chat, they typically highlight ways that students can fulfill both a core and a major requirement. So that's something certainly that advisors, both at the within majors and also at the Drummond Center, are constantly thinking about. In terms of whether a course can fulfill two different core requirements, sometimes. And so this is where there are some different disciplinary, like I mentioned before, that engineering students have a little bit more flexibility to do so. We also are able to connect different requirements, like the advanced writing can fulfill a different requirement, or the experiential learning for social justice can fulfill one of the other requirements. So we'll be able to kind of answer some specific questions, but this is something that comes up a lot. We have a lot of advising on campus and also information on our website about what can fulfill, two requirements or what couldn't. Many of our students study abroad, and we want to just emphasize that they can fulfill core requirements while studying abroad. And what they just do is submit a course for evaluation ahead of time. So we can pre-approve courses if they meet the learning objectives of the core area. It's great. They can take the course, a similar course during their study abroad, and it counts just as if they were taking it here. And this is just kind of scratching the surface of the information that we have. So definitely encourage you to check out our webpage. Also, feel free to email me with any questions. I'm just at core@scu.edu, and we'll have some discussion after this as well, so we can answer your questions in the chat or verbally as well. Next slide, please.
All right, I'm taking it back. Okay, awesome. Thanks, CJ. So what I want to do now is have us just share a little bit with you about the student support resources that are available on campus. So we have academic support and we have wellness supports available for students. So I have a campus map here because I want you to see all of the places where support is accessible to students. So first, we have professional advisors, and these are staff members who are hired to do advising as their primary job. I mentioned before that faculty are teaching scholars, and faculty also advise, but these are people who have as their primary job advising. The Drummond Undergraduate Advising Center has been communicating with you a lot during this pre-orientation process. That's where that's the primary source of our professional advising, where you can go and get information about all different kinds of majors and minors, and about double majoring, about changing majors, about exploring if you're still not sure what you want to do. So it's a good place to go have lots of different conversations. But there's also professional advisors in each of the schools and the college. There are professional advisors in athletics and in lead, in the Office of Accessible Education, at the One Stop, because sometimes you need to have a conversation with somebody from the Registrar of Financial Aid as well as, a course planner. And then International Student Services also have professional advisors to help with questions about making sure that you get into the classes that you need to get, or what classes should you be taking. Okay, we have faculty advisors too. As I mentioned, the teaching scholar model requires faculty to be advisors. So each student, by about week 2 of the fall quarter, will have a faculty advisor in their major department assigned to them. If you are an exploratory student who is, I'm not quite sure what you want to major in yet, you will be assigned an advisor, a faculty person as an advisor. And then when you declare your major, you'll be able to then get assigned an advisor in that department. And so faculty advisors are available in all of the offices, where all of the buildings where there are faculty offices. There are also 8 faculty advisors who work in the Drummond Undergraduate Advising Office, the one I just mentioned. They are broad, but there's specific faculty who can help with pre-health advising and also with pre-law advising and they're in the Drummond Center. And all of the down at the bottom of the screen there, those stars and over to the left bottom corner, those are the faculty who live in the residence halls. So every residential learning community has a faculty director who lives in and who engages in programming and including advising and other kind of academic support. We also have a very robust program for peer advising, and not just peer advising, but also peer tutoring, peer support each other in a lot of different ways. So there are peer advisors in each of the schools and the college. We're building a program in the Drummond Undergraduate Advising Center right now. But we also, and they're primarily really, really helpful for course selection and enrollment procedures, things like that. We have peer educators who are students who are work alongside the faculty member in the classroom to help facilitate a class. There are peer tutors who offer support for classes in all across the spectrum in math, in modern languages, in laboratory sciences. So there's a variety of tutoring available. Those tutors are available through the Drummond Center or through the Math Learning Center or through our Hub Writing Center. And then we have peer mentors in a variety of places on campus who are people who can not necessarily be an academic support, but be a thought partner for you as you're thinking through what you want to do. There are also students who live in the residence halls, of course, in leadership positions. So we call them community facilitators here at Santa Clara, and they're also really helpful sources of advice for you. All right, so if you look at the map, we got the campus pretty well covered with advising and different kinds of support. And then I want to add on one more kind here. So we also have wellness support on campus, and so uh, we have people who work in the literal wellness center, but we also have we have mental health providers. We have physical health facilities to deal, to help you keep well. So in terms of thinking about the campus ministry office is available. So when we think about the whole person, again, body, mind, spirit. So there are wellness supporters across campus as well. In addition to in the residence halls. So once again, your residential learning community has not only a professional staff person in charge, the residential residence director, a faculty person in charge, the faculty director, your community facilitators, but there's also a therapist in residence in the residential learning communities, and a spirituality facilitator who is a member of campus ministry who also lives in the residence halls. So there's a lot of ways that you can find different kinds of support all across campus. Okay, that's the end of what we've prepared. So I don't know if we've addressed all the questions in the chat. We can get to those. And oh, there was one more thing I wanted to mention that didn't really relate to this, but there was a question previous. I'm going to actually stop sharing because you don't need to see this anymore. Okay. Um, so somebody had asked in one of the previous questions about the opportunity for transfer credit and bringing in taking a class in the summer, say between your first and second years, and then getting credit for that. I'll drop the link in the chat. I need to shrink some things down here to get access to my document with the links. And so that it is possible for students to bring in 10 units of credit once you have started at Santa Clara. Before you start at Santa Clara, you can bring in up to half of the number of units that is required for your degree. But as first years, you typically don't bring in that much. But I will post a link to where you can find more information about it's called post-matriculation transfer.
Katie, there's a question in the chat about whether each RLC has a separate therapist or how that works in the RLCs. Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
Oh, not at all. As of to, well, I should, I believe that I am completely current, and we are not. We have 6 for 8 communities, is what I know right now. So that there isn't one in each community. But in addition to our therapists and residents, we have counseling and psychological services. We have therapists in the Cowell Center as well. So and what we're finding is that students are not waiting for service the way that many during COVID, right? Many schools were backlogged. And so oh, wait, here we go. And Stephen actually answered. We have 4 therapists in residence. Okay, sorry. So I gave the wrong number. Thank you, Stephen.
Here's a question maybe for Katie and potentially Stephen as well. What should students be doing prior to their registration appointment um, as they're preparing to register?
What I would do, okay, so I'm going to say what I would recommend is making sure that all of the stages of being a Bronco, all of the steps that students are supposed to complete before their appointment, make sure they do it. And to show up on time to your advising appointment, because the more time you have with your advisor, the better. One thing that we have noticed we've had 2 in-person orientations already, and we've had just a handful of students who have not completed their onboarding process, so they have a hold on their accounts. So make sure that when you go into Workday, you check and see if there's a hold on your account, and if there is, you resolve those before your registration appointment. And if any of that is way too confusing, you can reach out to an advisor in the Drummond Center who can help you walk you through that.
And then since I don't see any more questions yet, I just want to reinforce that I did turn on the setting where you can unmute yourselves and ask any questions live if you so choose. Otherwise, we'll kind of hang out, wait for some more questions to come in. Any other final thoughts, Katie or CJ, that our family should have as they work to advise their students and kind of prepare them for college?
I I just want to say, don't stress out about the registration process for this first quarter. And it's really important to know that we are on quarter system. So when you think about the number of classes that you take in any quarter, you'll end up after 12 quarters taking anywhere from 40, what is that, 48 to I don't know, 50 something classes. So you'll have a wider variety of classes. But that said, I know that students and parents get concerned when they look at the schedule of classes and see that there maybe aren't a whole lot of seats in each class. That is true. It's to accommodate our entire set of 1,650 who are joining us in September. But you will get the classes that you need. And you might not get it at the time that you want, but you will get the classes that you need. And we will work super hard to make sure that your first quarter experience is as good as it could be. But it gets easier. Registration gets easier after the very beginning. All right.
Anything you want to add, CJ, before we go to Z?
No, no, that's it. Yeah, it looks like we're getting some more questions. So maybe we can both.
Great. Z, why don't you come off mute and ask your question?
All right, thank you so much for this very helpful information. So my son has his orientation coming up on Monday and Tuesday. That's a lot of information that we have. So what are the main things he has to complete before coming to the orientation?
Sorry, I was looking for the mute button. The primary things is make sure your student completes their workday onboarding. So as students complete onboarding tasks within that system, they'll be prompted with new ones. It's on a flow. I actually just helped a student navigate a registration hold just yesterday because he did not complete steps. So just make sure all steps are completed. That inbox icon at the top of his workday portal, um, it no longer has a status symbol or a number of notifications that he needs to complete. So as long as he does that, they should be good to go as far as registering for courses. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you.
And they'll get lots of advising support on day one when they get here, and then they register for classes on day two.
Katie, do you want to take this question from Julia in the chat? It said, would a typical incoming freshman take 4 classes per quarter, and would the classes for freshman year be basically all core? Question mark. And then critical thinking, cultures, math, religions, things like that.
Yeah, that's a great question. Th and this is one of the things that distinguishes a core from general education, is that a core curriculum, I mean, is designed for the students to be taking classes throughout all 4 years. Whereas when you have a general education requirement at other kinds of institutions, the idea is everybody comes in, gets their GE done, and then moves into their major. At Santa Clara, it's very typical for students to mix up core, major, minor, and elective courses throughout the whole 4 years. So they won't take 4 core courses during their first quarter. You typically take 4 courses a quarter, but 3 is full time. So if a student figures out, getting into the quarter that it's too fast, it's too much, they're just not ready this in the fall for 4 classes, you can drop down to 3 with the advice of an advisor. You can drop down to 3 and you're still in perfectly good standing. You will still graduate on time. That's not an issue. But no, typically our students they'll be taking core classes all the way through the last quarter of before graduation.
Let's go to Kayvon.
Hi. Yeah, my daughter actually just she got an English course that she got assigned already.
Mhm.
And I guess it's one of her classes that she has to take. How do we how does Santa Clara help with make sure that she gets all of her classes so she can graduate in the 4 years with potentially maybe a minor or a double major?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for pointing out about the English class. So all incoming first year students are enrolled in at least one class for the fall quarter, and it's a core class. So 80% of our students or the incoming students got enrolled into their critical thinking and writing, which is the English class.
Right.
And then the other 20 are either have a cultures and ideas class or a religion class. And so when they work with, on day one of orientation, when they work with their advisors, what they do is they go through the list of requirements for the major that they're planning. And
Okay.
then also, if you're, potentially thinking, well, I'm thinking I might want to add another minor or a minor or something, we can go through that list as well and map that on top of the number of
Okay.
courses, right? And there probably won't be time during orientation to do this, but what I would really encourage all of our students to do when they get here in the fall is to make an appointment with an advisor in the Drummond Center and work on a 4-year plan. And what that does is it
Okay.
helps you, yes, spread the classes out, helps you feel really confident that you're going to be able to do this. And, you just and to build in a study abroad quarter if that's what you want, right? There's
Yeah.
there's no major that cannot go on study abroad. So don't everybody can go. It just takes some planning. So yeah, does that help? Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. No,
Okay.
that's good. I think getting, like you said, that planning ahead of time. And you
Yeah.
said they can schedule that when?
As soon as they get here, I would say, well,
Okay.
not the first week because the first
Yeah.
week is crazy, right? But at some point during fall quarter, when things calm down a little bit, it'd be great. Reach out to someone in the Drummond Center. You can make an appointment right on workday and go and sit with somebody and map out a 4-year plan.
Okay. That's great. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We had a question in the chat about how long it would take for a student to graduate if they took 3 classes per quarter versus 4. Students graduate with at least 175 units. So I think that turns out to be about an average of 14 to 15 units per quarter if students are going 3 quarters a year. So you could think about, trying to do 4 classes for most quarters and, some classes with 3, as I think Julia posted some information earlier in the chat about courses that are typically 4 or 5 units depending on the course, and then there's some smaller 1 and 2 unit courses too. So generally, we try to help students average that kind of 14 to 15 units per quarter and stay on track. And students also sometimes may take courses. We offer summer courses as well, and many of those do fulfill core requirements.
Yeah, and also just a reminder that it depends on I was going to say too, it also is really dependent on the major
Mm-hmm.
because some majors have more flexibility in them than others. And so if you're in a natural science major, engineering, for example, where you've got sequenced courses that must be taken in order, you don't have as much flexibility as a humanities major, for example, where you can move things around a little easier. So, yeah.
That's a great point.
I can also just add, hi everyone, my name is Julia. I'm a staff member on the orientation team, and I'm also an SCU alum. So from that student perspective, I did primarily in your first year or two take mostly those lower division classes. Most of those core classes are lower division. So I would average closer to 4 classes when I was taking more of the lower div classes, and then getting into my junior and senior year when I was taking more of the upper division classes, I would have more quarters where I would only take 3 classes, which would be about 15 credits.
CJ, you want to handle Wesley's question? And then I'll take the one above it.
Sure, absolutely. So basically, our second language requirements are based on the student's major. And so a student in engineering would just be required to come in to have 2 years of high school language to graduate. So there is no specific second language requirement for engineering students.
Yeah. So a minor doesn't affect the core, how you complete the core. So there is a question here during orientation, how much time does each student get with the academic advising? If you're talking about in-person orientation, the students have about, oh, I used to have this, I have it right here. The students are, Stephen, or you guys might know more quickly, 210. The students have like an hour and a half on the first day with advisors to answer questions and look for open courses and put together a saved schedule. And then they have the next day, on day 2, when they meet with their advisors, they have another hour. It's an hour and 15 minutes maybe in order to register for those classes. And in each of the rooms, when they're doing just the advising part on day 1 and when they're doing the registration part on day 2, there are professional advisors, there are the assistant deans from the different schools available, and there are half a dozen faculty in each of the rooms to work individually with students to make sure that their schedules, they're able to get what they need. Okay, Kayvon, I see you again. You have a question?
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to double click on I think the answer that you all gave in regards to the second language. So if if they have already taken 3 years, for example, Spanish in high school, and then they took the test and they said, oh, um, you do a third year for that. One of the things that my son also goes to Santa Clara, and he did the study abroad, but he went to Rome, so he had to learn Italian instead of the Spanish that he had from there. That covers, I guess, their third year, but it's not 2 years of language. They actually have to have 3 years. Is that correct?
There,
Sorry, maybe that was a
three quarters.
confusing
Is that?
question.
No,
Um,
it's not confusing.
yeah, yeah. So you're saying, so basically, typically, depending on the student's major, they may take 3/4 of a language, or 2/4, or no language at SU required for engineering students. So yeah, so
Okay,
kind of to your question, that study abroad course could count towards that two or three
okay,
quarters, depending on the requirement. So yeah.
okay, okay,
If that, and I just dropped a link in the chat with the second language requirements, depending on school and college, and then any major distinctions in there. So
okay. So if she does study abroad, but she doesn't do it in Spanish, as long as she does some language, any language, then it's covered at that point. Then.
No, not
Oh,
necessarily.
okay.
No, the core, I think if I'm understanding you correctly, the student can get credit for taking a language abroad, but they don't necessarily satisfy the core. The core
Okay.
requirement is a level of proficiency. It's not number of classes, right?
Okay.
And so so you've got to get to the what we consider to be the highest level of our um, uh, introductory, I'm trying to think of the word,
Yeah.
introductory classes, which is 3/4 here. But
Okay.
it's equivalent to about 4 years of high school language too. So if your student has
Oh,
completed 3 or 4 years of high school language and takes the placement exam, they'll
yep.
get placed into probably the first level of an intermediate class, and they take that one class, and that completes the core requirement.
Okay.
As
Okay.
long as you complete a single course that is at the level 3 or above at Santa Clara, then you've completed the core requirement,
Okay. Got it. Okay.
right?
Thank you.
Yeah,
That
you're
makes sense.
welcome.
And then before moving on to the question, Katie, that you want to answer, there was another follow-up on this topic regarding, so the students were required to take their language placement process as part of their onboarding. Do we know when they'll get those results?
Unfortunately, no. I wish I had a good answer for how long it takes. It should say somewhere on their website how long it takes. Um, if your student gets here to orientation to register, and doesn't have and hasn't received their results from the second language department yet, I think we have a faculty person from the modern languages department in one of the registration rooms, and we can ask for advice about placement in that case. That reminds me, if your students have received their AP scores, but the university hasn't yet, if we don't have them in the system, when your student comes to register for classes, what we've been doing is we just ask them to open up their laptop, go to the College Board website, show what the scores are, and then your registration will be made, right? The recommendations are made appropriately to what will eventually show up on your transcript. But if we don't have them yet, don't worry, we'll still accept them and accommodate that.
Great. And then Julia did just mention the language from the website. It's about take up to 14 days after completing the process. And then one of our fellow parents, Leslie, did let us know that her student did receive the results already. So they are coming out. So just have your student be on the lookout for those.
Yeah.
And then Katie, you can address that question that you mentioned earlier.
Which one?
I believe it was regarding if an engineering student chooses a minor in arts and
Oh,
sciences.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, we got to that one.
Okay, great. Cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Cool, cool.
Okay, I do see something. There are some introductory courses that are 1 or 2 credits. How difficult are those classes? I think the answer to that is it depends, right, on the student and the class. If the 2 unit classes are typically reserved for they don't meet very often. That's one of the reasons they're two units rather than 4 or 5. They don't have the same number amount of uh, time with the instructor. And those are often dance classes or music classes, like the instrument classes, maybe some leadership. So I don't know. Most departments do not have 2 unit lower division like major classes. So I'm not sure the exact class that we're asking about. I don't know, Leslie, if you want to. Oh, wait, not Leslie. Sonnet, if you want to unmute and specify. I'm not sure what you're asking about. Oh. All right, I'm going to answer this other one about language. So lots of language questions. Um, the question that William Patterson has about the proficiency test. If you go to, I'll grab it, or CJ, you want to grab the link to the testing page
Yeah, I
on.
have it right here. Sure.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So there is a proficiency test that does allow you to place out of um, the language requirement if you really have no interest in pursuing your language any further. And so we'll put some information in there in the chat about that. Okay, I have to take 3 courses. Spanish, Okay, Julia, for your question about Spanish transitioning to Italian. Um, it depends on the student's major, first of all, if they need 1, 2, or 3 quarters. And so if your student is an arts, humanities, or social science major, they would need through level 3. So it would be 3 quarters. If they're natural science or business, it would be 2 quarters. Um, for that. So, and if they're engineering, it's 0 quarters they to fulfill the requirement, but to take it to be proficient enough to go. If nothing wrong with being proficient in a language, even beyond what the bare minimum is. So, and especially if you're thinking about study abroad in Italy.
There was a question in the chat about what your students typically study abroad and for how long. There's a good amount of flexibility here, and Katie can probably add because she's actually taught in study abroad courses as well. But typically students, their junior year is the most common year, often the fall quarter, but there's some flexibility there. And also we have quite a few summer experiences as well. So, if a student can't fit something into their academic plan or they prefer to do it over the summer, there are some options there.
Yeah, and I'll just add. So yes, most students go in the fall quarter of their junior year, and that's because being on a quarter system, we students go for a semester abroad, and most of the programs are semester programs. So if they go for a semester, they bring back a semester's worth of units, so they're a little bit ahead at the end of fall quarter. If they were to go on a spring semester and then miss winter and spring quarters, they would come back slightly behind on their units. So that's why most students apply for the fall of their junior year. But there are quarter programs, and so students should definitely explore that. And then there are summer programs, and they're of varying lengths. So as CJ mentioned, I actually last year taught a summer faculty-led immersion or excursion in London. So I took a small group of Santa Clara students to London, and we did a 3-week intensive course on British media systems, which is what I teach American media systems here. So it was yeah, and they got core and major credit for it because it's a class that we offer. Okay, the intro to engineering class. Sorry, coming back to that. Engineering one. Yes, the engineering one class is required of all incoming engineers, and it is designed to orient all of the different engineers to the different aspects of engineering and to get them hands-on experience with different kinds of engineering. So it's not a class that is going to be more difficult than any of the other classes the student is taking. All right. Carol's question is for you, Stephen. Are there more parent information sessions?
Yes.
Oh, there he goes.
So yes, I'm finalizing the topics this week. An email will go out Saturday afternoon with the rest of the topics for the summer, with links to register for those events. And then just so you all know, I am hosting these type of webinars throughout the academic year, one probably per month, to start, but that is something new that we're offering this year as well. So you'll always have opportunities to hear from us, but on your specific question, you will hear by Saturday of this week.
David, I have a question regarding that. Where can we get previous access to previous web recordings?
Yeah, so I just dropped
Oh,
in.
thank you.
It's okay, but it's on our YouTube channel. It's on the Center for Student Involvement, CSI's YouTube channel. You should all see emails after each of these sessions with the links attached. But that's also a good place to refer to if you ever need to find them. All right, I think we're going to close. I don't have any other thoughts aside from I hope you enjoyed today's sessions. Katie or CJ, did you have anything before we close for the afternoon?
No, I think we're excited to see everybody and welcome you here.
Likewise, yeah, don't hesitate to reach out with questions as we go along and look forward to seeing many of you on campus sometime soon.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon, evening, wherever you may be.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.